It's time to get down to business on TK Business Live, brought to you by the members of the Topeka Independent Business Association. Now, let's join Tara Dimmick, owner and publisher of TK Business Magazine, as we take a look into the business world of Topeka, Kansas.
Hi, and welcome to TK Business Live. It's great to be with you today. We've got a great show coming up. I've got Lisa Loewen joining me here just shortly. She's the editor-in-chief of TK Business Magazine. Also, a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Topeka Independent Business Association. You can learn more about them at topekatiba.org. That's topekatiba.org. I have Lisa Loewen joining me. She's editor-in-chief of TK Business Magazine. Welcome.
Thank you.
Always great to have you. So the new issue of TK just came out, and so we're just going to kind of do a walkthrough of what's all in the magazine, what you can find, why you should read it. And the cover story is Kotoba. So talk a little bit about Kotoba and what that story is all about.
Well, this story is going to be our Heart of the Entrepreneur story that we usually put in the magazine. And this is just a great family story. It's a family who started a business, went through some major tragedy and loss, and fought through that as a family, and then came out on the other side and grew and are continuing to grow and bring in more family members. They're opening multiple locations in Manhattan and another one here, and it's just a really great story of overcoming tragedy and coming out better on the other side.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool because it is a franchise, but it really shows a local business, which is the owner of the franchise, or the franchisee of Kotoba, being able to show, here's what it looks like to be a local business, even in this particular industry and arena of franchises.
And that's their whole goal, is to not seem like the franchise. Mm-hmm. They want to seem like the local business. And so that's their whole take on owning the Kotoba here, is to treat their customers like they're a local business, because they feel like they are a local business.
Yeah, and the piece of this article that I wish was more of is a little bit more of the tragedy, but we really talk about what happens with the business and the moment that that everything changes when you have a tragedy. Everything changes, and really they were able to rise above it, and sometimes that's not what happens. So it's a great story. You got to read it. I don't want to tell them anything else.
No spoilers.
All right. So, Lisa, you wrote Business Growth, and talk a little bit about the companies and what is going on, and really what that whole piece is about.
What we try to do, obviously, as you all know, if you read TK, is to showcase what's happening in the business community here. And one of the big stories that we don't necessarily hear about are how businesses that, even though they've been around for a while, are growing. And so what we thought was, in this issue and maybe even some upcoming issues, to really look at ways that different businesses are choosing to grow. And so we chose 3 different avenues. We looked at a business that is actually expanding its own operations here. We looked at a business that is doing expansion and growth by opening operations in another location, and then looked at acquisition as a way for growth. So for the expansion happening here in Topeka, the obvious one was Mars. You're talking a huge investment in their equipment, in their facility. They're bringing out the new Twix line is coming off of the facility here. The new M&M caramel is coming out of the facility here. And so there's just a lot happening over there. New jobs, new technology, new equipment, new candy. It's kind of a fun story.
It is, and I think it's important for people to remember that, we celebrated Mars when it came, but it was built for expansion. They built it to continue to grow, and it is a huge opportunity for our community that we have a huge business like that is built for expansion.
Well, and because it is still built for expansion, that's the future looks really bright for that facility, because any new product coming off the line or anything that needs a specific way to produce it, the Topeka facility probably has the newer technology able to handle that.
Which is why they chose the caramel. I mean, the M&M caramel was chosen to come to Topeka because it had the ability to make that particular product.
Yeah, when we were talking about the challenges with that, they said it was really kind of unique because they had to find a way to make the perfect environment so the M&M was not too soft, because you have the caramel on the inside. So it couldn't be so soft that it was going to collapse, but it also had to be able to maintain its integrity, but have that caramel. You can't be crunchy either. It has to have that softness of the caramel.
Right. Not be a hard caramel. Yeah. It's really, that particular piece is it's awesome because it continues to talk about the expansion, but it also talks, and we talk about it in another article as well in the talent swap, but the partnerships that Topeka has and how Mars is partnering with Washburn Tech to really also be creating jobs, so as people are, as you're thinking about where am I going to go, or what could I do, or I'm interested in changing my career path, Washburn Tech has, because of their partnership with Mars, has really made an opportunity for you to go get the skill set you need for Mars to be able to hire you.
And very, very lucrative paying positions in those kinds of fields as well.
Yeah.
So the next business that I talked to when we're talking about expansion is Veris Aviation. And they're obviously not on the scale that Mars is when you talk about the size of a business. But you've got it's a local aviation. What they do is they help companies actually own their own planes. And so they go out and they find people that are willing to go in on a partnership to own an airplane, which for a lot of businesses, that's overwhelming. When you think about, how do I manage that? How do I do the maintenance on that? Where am I going to store that?
How do I get a pilot?
How am I going to get a pilot? And so that's what Veris does, is they manage all of everything from helping you find the right partners to acquire a plane. They help you find the plane. They help you do all the management, set up all the back end, the billing, the pilots, the scheduling, the flight details, all of that. And so it actually makes owning airplanes more of a viable option for smaller companies. So they've been doing this for a while here in Topeka. They've grown to where they have, I think, 8 commercial planes here. And what they did was they had a client who came to them about a year ago and said, we've got someone who's interested in using your service, but they need you to be in Scottsdale, Arizona. And rather than saying, sorry, we don't have the ability to do that, Brooks Pettit, the owner over there, said, sure, no problem. And so because of the way their operation is set up and the way they have technology in place, they can handle pretty much all the operations side of that from Topeka. So they just had to find a hangar. They had to find the airplane down there, and then they have to have a pilot and somebody to do the maintenance on the plane in the Arizona location.
Yeah, and Brooks really does run his company first class. I mean, I've talked with many people that when you leave your vehicle there to go fly off, when you get back, the vehicle's clean, it's ready to go, and it's sparkling, ready for you to drive away. So he takes care of everything and making you feel like you really are first class. And it's kind of cool that that's right here in Topeka.
Yeah, because when you look at the size of the market of Topeka, you think, who wants to own an airplane?
Right.
But there are
lots.
several people who do. So that was an interesting story. And then the last one is a company that is doing some acquisition. And we've heard about HME Inc. lately. They've been winning some awards with the Chamber and Small Business Awards. And they already had bought Cycle Zone.
Yes.
As kind of a fun business. And then they already opened up a startup business called Peak to Peak, which does the metal stair railings and those kinds of things.
And they've expanded out to Kansas City, Denver, and I believe they're looking in the Dallas area now to expand even further.
Right. And when I talked to John Haas about his acquisition, he shared the story of the Topeka Foundry that's been in the local area for more than 120 years. And when they were looking at the possibility of selling out, they approached HME about whether they wanted to purchase the company. And John jumped at the chance. And even though there are some hiccups along the way that John was pretty frank about, and the article kind of talks about some of those stumbling blocks that come in with acquiring not only another business, but just such a long-standing one that has employees that have been around for a long time, he said that it was a great opportunity because a lot of the expenses that you experience with a startup, you don't have necessarily when you acquire a company, especially one that fits into your existing model of what you're trying to do. So he already had a company that had a client base, it had equipment, it had employees who knew how to run the equipment, which is a huge cost savings to a business.
Yeah, and then able to bring in his what they've done successfully and ignite that business. So it'll be exciting to see as this transition comes in, and it's pretty new. I mean, this acquisition just happened in the last 6 months.
Oh, yes.
So it'll be exciting to see what transforms with HME and Topeka Foundry in that process. All right, so talent swap. I touched on it a little bit. Kim Groniger writes this piece. It's a 4-part piece that we've been working on, that she's been working on. The first one was the retirement wave, and this one's talent swap. And I have been in so many meetings where we've used phrases like retirement wave, which was the one in our spring issue, and then talent swap. And when I heard that, I was like, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? And literally in the meeting that I was at, people were able to say, well, John used to be at my company, but now he's over there, and could point across the table at, another business and say, how's he doing for you? And they could almost say, well, that's great and all, but we lost so-and-so to you, and we lost so-and-so to them. And they were pointing just in a very non-abrasive way that this is what was happening. It wasn't anything where they were upset or unaware of the situation, but people were being stolen away by better benefits or by better pay. And they were just jumping from one job to the next to move through potentially the ladder as well. But we're in a situation right now where we're not adding people to help that issue of needing people. We're just jumping back and forth. And I think that's what Kim kind of addresses with this.
Yeah, because the whole idea of people climbing the ladder has almost shifted to where the ladder is sideways. Right. And so you maybe you're not actually taking on more responsibility. It's the same job, the same duties, but something is more attractive at a different company in kind of a lateral move. And so you have people that are moving every 2 or 3 years laterally. It used to be they would jump to go vertically, but now they're willing to move laterally if something with the culture they're in or the benefits package is different.
Flexibility, whatever it is. And then businesses in this article speak to what they're doing to retain employees, how they're developing a culture, how they're empowering their employees, whatever, whether it's giving them something or whether it's getting them involved in some way. It's the, how do we keep an employee here? How do we make them feel like the grass isn't greener on the other side?
And a lot of it is recognizing that lateral movement actually moves people out of Topeka. And so if you can, as a company, find what will keep young people, especially your young people and your growing workforce, if you can keep them in Topeka rather than having them jump laterally into a position in Kansas City, then that will make the community stronger down the road.
Absolutely. And again, it goes, we speak a little bit to Washburn Tech, and I think Washburn Tech has done a phenomenal job of putting programs in place that help the employers create a skilled workforce and with the skills that they need. And that in turn keeps a better employee that is kind of indebted to that employer. So it's a really interesting article. I think you'll gain a lot from it. Whether you're looking for a position, whether you're the CEO, whether you're HR, or whether you're trying to understand why you keep losing people. It really gives you an idea of here's maybe some things we should be considering to improve our culture.
And then the nice thing about it is it actually comes from the perspective of 4 different employers here in Topeka and what they're experiencing and how they're combating that. And so, whether you're in the, a large company like an insurance company, or if you're in a medical facility or whatever you are, it gives you a different perspective on what's happening with that.
So the next article I want to talk about, it was kind of a fun article. It came out of a company. They had actually contacted us a couple times telling us about their business, and they were staying on our radar, and finally the opportunity came for us to showcase them. And it's the coolest thing in my world because it's a pop-up business. But I think for a lot of people, they'll enjoy the story because of why it's a pop-up business. So Lisa, talk a little bit about this particular story.
Okay, so there's this couple, and they're both teachers, and they have been teaching for years and love astronomy. And they went and they viewed a solar eclipse several years ago and found out that it's not really safe to view a solar eclipse. And there wasn't really a great option for how you protect yourself, your eyes, when you're trying to do that. Well, there is a total solar eclipse coming this August, which is fairly rare, especially to come through Kansas. And so the two of them decided, you know what, Kansans need to see this total solar eclipse, and we're going to help them do it. We're going to help them stay safe while they do it. So they sell their safety glasses. They've already sold more than 6,000 pairs on their website, and they offer memorabilia and maps. And they are so excited about this that they're even putting together you can buy a chartered tour and ride on their air-conditioned bus, and they will tell you all about the eclipse, and they'll take you to where it's called the path of totality, where it's going to cross over directly overhead. And the eclipse is only going to last like 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, if that.
But I don't think it's supposed to come back to Kansas until 2045.
Yeah. So this is the chance. This is, and so that's why it's, for me, the business side of it is how cool. They knew this business was probably going to be a short term, one time. They were going to hit it, but they were going to give, it's really following their passion of giving it back to the community, giving it back to something they love, something they find just fascinating. And we get to be the recipients of it. So right here in Kansas, you can go to their website and get your glasses and then go get the chartered. And it even tells you where the best spot is at in the article and all of those things. But yeah, it's a very fun article. It's a very cool business. And it would be great for us all to go get some glasses so we can really watch the total solar eclipse. All right. So a big piece of the magazine is an article called Fountain of Youth. And this one is a beast. But it goes from kind of the concept of KMC, who is looking at maybe a surgical solution for you to have the Fountain of Youth, to some really alternative things that are coming into our business environment and into really a preventative process versus how to fix it after it's broken. And so talk a little bit about the Fountain of Youth, the article, and maybe some of the businesses that were mentioned in it. There was like 8 or 9 businesses in this piece, so I know it was packed full.
Yeah, this one it kind of went the gamut from more invasive to less invasive ways to prolong youth, whether that's your physical appearance, whether that's your ability to move, whether that is just inflammation and relieving stress, all of those things that contribute to the aging process. So it used to be that there's such a stigma against plastic surgery. We would be, while we all were jealous and wanted to have it, we would, behind somebody's back, say, oh my God, did you see that? That person just got a facelift, right? And so that stigma of that has gone away. And as medical procedures have gotten less expensive, more accessible, and less of a social stigma attached to it.
And really improved. I mean, there was a time when it was almost like you had a frozen face. Mm-hmm. And it really, it has improved. The science, the medical side of it has improved as well.
Yeah, so we talk a little bit. We don't have, it's such a massive article, and we've talked to so many people that we can't dive into specific procedures and talk about costs and talk about benefits and all of that. But it tries to do kind of a surface dive into what kind of options are out there. So you have your ranges, everything from, your facelifts and your traditional tummy tucks and those kinds of things to this huge rise of the med spa, where you get your fillers and Botox that helps reduce the wrinkles and, chemical peels that will refresh your skin, and even things like the cryotherapy and where that you can do it melts your fat cells by freezing them, and
cool sculpting.
Cool sculpting. That's what I was looking for. All kinds of really minimally invasive procedures that will help you reshape, redefine, make your skin look better.
And even weight loss, or the Midwest Float that gives you a chance to relax and de-stress. So it is interesting how diverse this article gets. But I think the point of the article is that this industry is massively growing in all different ways. And a big part of that is the stigma, as well as the boomers coming and being able to afford those different procedures. And then this Generation X that is interested in the preventative measures and doesn't want to necessarily have to do the invasive stuff later on. They want to be able to be youthful for as long as they can.
Well, Jamie Slack wrote this article, and time and time again, what she would note would be that what we suspected when we sent her out was the boomers were going to be driving this. And it's a lot of the millennials that are driving this, especially when you get into the lesser invasive med spa procedures, because they know more. They know more about taking care of their skin and taking care of their bodies and maintaining appropriate weight, and they're more interested in the science behind it, and they're more willing to spend some money along the way.
Right. I forgot about that whole generation, that millennial generation. We only talk about them all the time, most of the time. Okay, so that was a monster. That's a monster part of the magazine. So I hope you work yourself through it, because it's definitely worth it all the way to the end, because you're going to hear about all different types of businesses within the same industry. And it's a fascinating piece to really just touch on and consider and think about those different companies and the different types of things they're doing. Our last word is Andy Corbin. And so Blue Cross Blue Shield is celebrating 75 years. And this was kind of a chance to get to have him be a voice to that 75-year celebration.
Yeah, he's been part of Blue Cross Blue Shield for pretty much most of his entire career, and has a very thoughtful, insightful look at not only the role that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas plays in the marketplace, but also the healthcare market in general. And he has some great insight into what makes companies able to withstand some of the rapid changes that are happening inside, especially in the healthcare marketplace right now.
So the one piece that we almost forgot to talk about is cult food. So this is a great piece. It's like five businesses we talk about, and it's a new writer for TK. She's a blogger, right? She's a food blogger. So talk a little bit about this cult food. Is it cult food or cult?
Cult food.
Cult food.
Well, we have Tricia Peterson, who is a chef, a caterer, and she also blogs about food. And so we thought it'd be fun to have her look at some places in Topeka that have a cult-like following. And we all know who they are. We each have our own place that we go back to.
There was a lot of arguments about this one.
There
who
were
the five, and did we really pick right? And some of it was because maybe somebody didn't contact us back, so we had to select a different one. But this one would. I'm curious to see what people say about it. Did we pick it right? Did we miss one?
Well, we know we've missed several.
Yeah, we know.
When we were making the list, there were probably 10 places that we knew we need, and we just can't cover 10 places. And so, but Tricia went to every single place, and she writes a little bit of a different voice you're going to hear in the magazine. She writes more from first person. So she's, as a blogger, she's writing about kind of her experiences and how she feels inside the place and what makes it feel like to her, why it might have a cult-like following. The underlying theme, however, is that nobody can explain it. The owners can't explain why they got a cult-like following. The people who eat there can't explain why they go back. They just do. And it's something about the knowing what to expect when they get there, and the menu's been the same for, 30 years, and that same burger that they always get, they're always going to get. And it's just kind of a fun piece when you look at places that some of us have never even stepped foot in, but I plan to now that I have read the article.
I know. And Taco Villa is one of my favorites because, there's a love-hate relationship with it, because I absolutely love going there, but I know that I should never go there. The food is so dang good. But one of the things that Tricia mentions is, I can say that and I will argue my point, and somebody else is going to say, that is not the best food ever. And we would fight over that conversation. And that's kind of what she speaks to, is that these are restaurants that you would actually get into an argument about why everybody should go to this place and how good it is. And, a lot of the owners have been there for generation after generation. I think there's only one of the 5 that's not a generational restaurant as well. And I agree, there's some that I have been to, and there's a couple I haven't. And so I felt kind of like, wow, I'm not even a part of that one. And so I do have to say, I think North Topeka won out, though. The North Topeka had the most restaurants that got selected, not on purpose. It was not chosen that way. It was just happenstance. And most of those businesses, again, generational and just being around for a long, long time. I think the youngest one was Bradley's Cafe was selected, and it's only been around since 2005, I want to say. But I think that one had actually been other businesses, other cafes before it was 2005. So it had a cult following. The reason it got in there, it had a cult following that actually followed his businesses that he would start, and Bradley's Cafe is the one that's currently in play.
Yeah, the diners kept finding him.
They kept finding him and the business he would open. But that one's an interesting too, because I really liked the part of the story with that one, with Bradley's Cafe, in the fact that it has seen Noto transform. And I think that's interesting, to be one of the businesses that was there before it became Noto. They watched the whole transformation. They watched the construction of the streets and the improvements that happened before it even became Noto in the Arts District. So, and then now they get to enjoy the fruits of all that transformation.
If you can get in, because the people who were going there before Noto are still going there.
Right. All right. So any other last thoughts about the summer issue of TK?
It's the same thing I always say. Every single issue has something you're going to find interesting. So go out, pick one up, leaf through it. And again, if you've got a great idea for a story, something you think we need to cover, somebody has something great going on, send us a note and we'll try to get them covered.
Yeah. And you can go check it out on tkmagazine.com. If you can't find a magazine, they're usually only around for a few weeks. You can pick them up at Dillon's and Hy-Vee and any of our partners, all of our business partners. We have magazines at their locations as well. And feel free to grab one. That's what they're there for, and that's why the businesses have it out.
My name is Ken Daniel, and the name of my company is Midway Wholesale.
What is TIBA? TIBA is advice and support. TIBA is information and education. TIBA is a voice for small business.
It's amazing the changes that we've gotten made in state law, to the point where we had a list at one time and it's just about finished.
The Topeka Independent Business Association is strong because of its members. Become a member today by visiting topekatiba.org.
Thanks so much for joining me on TK Business Live. Have a fabulous week.
Thanks for joining Tara and her guests on TK Business Live. Join us again next Sunday at 11:30 to hear more from our community business leaders, entrepreneurs, and people making a difference in the landscape of how business is progressively moving forward in Topeka. TK Business Live is brought to you by the members of the Topeka Independent Business Association.